Okay, welcome to my submission video for Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance on PC. My name is Joseph Joestar316, and I'll be running the full Tanker Plant playthrough on European Extreme, New Game Plus, which is on the PC version of Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance to be specific. So what we're going to do is we're just going to set up all of our game conditions, which includes not game over if discovered, as well as disabling radar, because we're running this on European Extreme as the highest difficulty. We're going to attempt to go for big boss rank using non-lethal stealthy strats. I'm not sure if I'll get the rank, but I will still demonstrate it regardless. So the time will start as soon as I confirm this game over condition, and the time will end on the last hit of Solidus with an estimate of 1 hour 20 minutes. So it's going to start in 3, 2, 1, go. So one thing to note before we get underway is you're going to hear some beeps, which is me toggling the turbo function on and off throughout the run. We're playing on the Metal Gear Solid 2 mod, which we call V's Fix, which is basically a fan-made mod application that fixes a lot of the issues with the original MGS2 port when it was originally released. It just fixes a slew of issues and allows us to play it on, modern rigs with controllers and widescreen formats. And the turbo is a feature that's built in, which is accepted within the speedrunning community for Metal Gear Solid 2 on the leaderboards. So the turbo will allow us to do certain things, allow us to skip codecs faster, we can skip through cutscenes faster. So it just basically spams an input at, inhuman speed. So you'll notice that I'll be using it for certain things, while disabling it for others. So as we get underway, we're basically racing up to Olga, which is the first boss fight of the entire run, and the only boss fight of the tanker. It's more or less an introductory to the game, from Metal Gear Solid 2. So, again, we're skipping cutscenes, not only just to be quick, but we allow us to, get past that camera as it's scanning left to right. Okay, so I kind of messed up that approach there. You can actually do a misdirect shot when you go to the cafeteria table, but we'll just let that one go. Alright, so here we got Olga, and depending on what RNG you get... Okay, so I got what we call the right side Olga. It's a pretty much standard encounter, where you can also get a left side Olga, where she'll run around to the left of this deck, and if you shoot her and get her to notice you in the right way, it'll allow you to get an Olga loop, which saves you about 8 seconds, and you don't get this dialogue.
We've shared everything.
Alright, so 4 headshots. And just like that, we're done with Olga. But one thing to note about European Extreme, on how it varies from other difficulties, is primarily your ammo count will vary, there are no rations to use, and most boss fight encounters will kill you in 1 hit, sometimes 2, depending on what it is. And guards can kill you in 3 gunshots. So it's mainly surviving that's one of the biggest challenges in European Extreme, among other things. So in addition to the M9, we finally acquired our lethal weapon of this tanker section, which is the USP. Up until when I picked up that ammo box, Olga spent all the rounds because she was that generous.
Possible hostiles sighted. Send backup.
So what I just did there, followed by back in Deck B, is I did a misdirect shot where it's going to gain the guard's attention, which is allowing me to get through quickly without having to stop and trank them. Now here, we're going to let another guard notice us here. He's going to shoot the plexiglass, and then I'm just going to fire an M9 round to the radio. You can also trank them in the head, but disabling radios with the M9 is very useful in situations like this. So for this engine room, I'm just going to be dropping down a level, which is also going to trigger this guard to move forward. And when he gets to right about there, we're going to fire off a round and roll, which every time you fire at least 1 round, followed with a roll, punch, punch, kick, or a rollover via, CQC, it will instantly knock the guard out without having to resort to, direct headshots.
I got you. Are you okay?
So what I just did there is I allowed that guy to see me on purpose so I can have him fire at me and then line up a shot to his radio. Which, when you normally come in here, you normally get a cutscene of a guard that comes in to repair a door. By triggering this caution, it allows you to skip basically 1 second of skipping a cutscene.
Arizona Bridge checkpoint passed.
Alright, so we're on our way to the inner holds to find a Metal Gear prototype and take pictures of it.
You are ordered to continue manning your post until that time.
Alright, so I'm gonna focus on this for a second.
Freeze.
So what I did there is I fired the USP twice to stagger the guard from
The enemy is attacking.
directly seeing me, but it's also minimal to, you know, not kill them outright by accident. And I followed it up with a hold up with the M9, which is one way of just getting by them without having to slow down. So this is the first guard rush encounter, which I'll try to explain it as I go. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lead off with a USP shot to not kill the guard, but just stop him in his place to line up a follow-up M9 shot. And we're gonna do the same thing for all the remaining guards here. So that was the 5th. There's a total of 8 you have to take out before you trigger the last 3, which that was 7, and that was the 8th guard. So next we're gonna do is we're gonna fire 1, 2, 3 rounds on the last 3 that come in. And you might be thinking, well, wait a minute. If you're going for non-lethal stealthy strats, then why'd you just fire your USP at the last 3? Because shooting them in the head with the USP at the end of guard rush is faster than tranking them. Okay, so what I just did there is what we call the ladder skip glitch, which is when you enter that ladder in hold 1 while having a camera equipped, and every time you equip the camera, conventionally, it's normally puts you in first-person view and you're stationary. So the game doesn't know how to process you being on the ladder while holding up, or while holding a camera at the same time. So it kind of puts us out of bounds. And through a series of button inputs, it allows us to... Okay, I didn't get the camera equipped, but that's no biggie. It allows us to climb down both of those ladders by being temporarily out of bounds, and then grabbing the ladder below to skip either two dissension ladders, or maybe drop down a level and then go down on the last ladder. Which overall, I think it saves about like 12 seconds, depending on how fast you do it. So I just took... Okay, well, I almost took all 4 pictures. So I'm just gonna double check which one that it was that I missed. So I'm just gonna take a few. Yeah, sometimes I can get a little too ahead of myself with these pictures, so we're just gonna try it again. Okay, there we go. So, the very first picture I tried to take was the Marines logo, which, as you may have noticed, you may not have actually saw where it said the Marines on the side of Metal Gear Ray, which, because the game is available on widescreen resolution formats, it allows you to kind of get a picture of the Marines logo without actually having to be in front of it. The camera hitbox for that is very wide. Which, unfortunately, if you're not aiming it right, you can miss it, but not the end of the world. So, we're done with the tanker. We're now playing as Raiden in the plant section, which, like the tanker, is more or less an introductory to, you know, how to play MGS2. It teaches you a lot of the basics, and it's a race to meet up with Stillman, who is a bomb defusal expert, which we'll get into that shortly. And then, as you can see, we're still using Turbo to just menu through all of these as fast as we can, while at the same time, we're holding Select to answer these codecs on the first available frame, which is something that's used quite a bit throughout the run. Alright, so our first task is to get into this elevator that we're waiting for it to get called back, and we got 3 guards and no weapons. But in actuality, we do have a weapon. and it's our fists. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab this guy as he gets up, aim down. We're gonna punch him in the groin, which is gonna be an instant KO. Get this guy's attention so he can focus on that guard that I just knocked out. And then as he gets closer, I'm gonna knock on this wall to lure this third guard over. And just like that, here's the elevator.
Enemy in the air.
Hey, you know he's right. There was an enemy in the air, and that was me. Which you will see the nut punch quite a bit. You know, because depending on what difficulty you're on, you can often start with an M9 at docks. But given we're on European Extreme, we don't really get any weapons up until when we progress further in the plant. Alright, so again, not much to see here. We're just skipping through all these tutorials like, yeah, this is how you knock on a wall to distract a guard. And this next section is, here's how you use hanging mode, which we're not going to do that. We're trying to be quick. So instead, we're just going to take the more direct approach. Cartwheel over these metal tiles so they don't hear me. Cartwheel into this guard.
Enemy sighted.
Which gives me plenty of time to exit the area before the alert kicks in. Because the rule about the radio broadcast when it comes to alerts is you can leave a room with the guard being on that radio trying to call for help, but if you hear the alert buzzer while leaving an area, it will count. But if you leave before you hear such a buzzer, or if they're still talking, the alert will be canceled. Like, it will never actually initiate. Because in this difficulty, like others, when an alert happens, it carries over into the next room. Which, ideally, for big boss attempts, we never want to get an alert that's outside of the scripted encounters. And in addition to the fact that, yes, it's 3 gunshots from enemy guards and I'm dead. Okay, so we're finally at Strut B, where we meet up with Peter Stillman, and a character who kind of sounds like a guy that reminds me of Solid Snake, but it's actually Iroquois Pliskin. I don't know, he looks kind of sus to me. But yeah, this is Peter Stillman. He basically goes over his role and why he's here, and that we have to disable these bombs via a coolant spray. So we're gonna go counterclockwise throughout the plant, which I will show briefly. So this is the big shell layout, and what we're gonna be doing is going in a counterclockwise fashion, which is done intentionally. Just based on weapon availability, the difficulty, and just for ease of convenience for, you know, trying to defuse these bombs. So, you'll notice on some bombs, I try to get as close as I can, because depending on how far away you are, it'll take slightly longer to defuse. But if you are close enough to get, like, an ideal range, you'll get what we call, like, a fast diffuse, which will save you about a second, or 1.25 seconds. So, like, 1.25 seconds.
What's going on? Respond.
Oh, yeah, so what I just did there is, since that guy sees me intentionally, and I can't really fight them directly, so we get them to turn where their back is facing the railing, and when you cartwheel forward, they go in the direction that they're facing, which will send him over into the ocean, but I assure you, that guy is not dead. He just merely had a bad fall, and we'll see him again. Okay, so we're just disabling, or I'm sorry, we're defusing this bomb on the rooftop first, followed by this one in the pump room. Which, as you can guess,
Freeze!
we're utilizing the groin punch tactics. You know, it's you know, I often joke it's about the thing to ascend above Metal Gear. It's not the nanomachines or the things that Raiden or Snake can do, but it's this creative CQC usage. You know, aka, you know, not punches are the thing to ascend above Metal Gear. So what you're seeing me do here as I'm crawling through these pipe sections is what we call the coolant rise, which is when we're crouching to stand up, equipping and unequipping the coolant spray in a certain fashion, which skips the climbing animation of when you're prone to standing, hence the coolant rise. It just makes it faster to go through that room, and we use that mechanic quite a bit. So what we're gonna do in Strut F is we're gonna throw a chaff as soon as we load in.
It's the end. Are you okay?
Which is gonna detonate just before this guy even gets a radio message out.
What's going on?
It's gonna lure 2 of the guards in this lower level upstairs,
Communications with Strut F have ceased.
and then buys me enough time to defuse this bomb, which, even though it's kind of like a little bit of a gap, but as long as you can see it and you're within range,
Crews are on the way.
you can defuse it.
Intensify the level of security.
So with this caution, it skips a cutscene here where Raiden would approach this corner to see that there are now ciphers patrolling the area. Okay, and then I'm gonna focus for a little bit. Okay, so I just did the coolant rise once again, while at the same time I carefully picked up a claymore mine, which is gonna be used for... Well, like, we're not gonna actually use the claymore, but we're just clearing the way for later. Alright, so we're just gonna clear the room of all the guards we can find. Take out these 2 cameras. And then we're gonna take out this last guard, which we nicknamed Mo. Because every time you hold him up, he says no. But it makes it sound like he's saying, Mo! You know, Mo's a good guy. You know, he's just doing his job. He doesn't, you know, he doesn't bother anybody, but... Unfortunately, he has to go down for the sake of this run.
Attack team, come back at once. Guard team, stay alert.
So, taking out that bomb in the conveyor room is very tight, since it goes throughout a conveyor system, and it will show up in the same place every time, but if you're not fast enough, you can actually miss it, and then have to disarm it elsewhere. Which, on this difficulty, tranquilizers is, if I haven't covered it. Okay, so I kind of missed that roll, so we're gonna have to do a backup strat. Okay, so actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it safe by picking up these stuns. Which I've been collecting some up until this point. Which is going to be used later in the end portion of this run. But one thing I didn't mention about tranquilizers is that on this difficulty, tranquilizers do not last very long. I think they last for about a minute. While they last longer on other difficulties. So it greatly affects how you handle rooms, because when you trach a guard and then leave and come back, they'll either be asleep or they would have woken up. And so what you're seeing me do here and then in this next area is we use the box to kind of break the guard's line of sight, which for some reason when they spot you and you equip the box soon after, it kind of breaks their script to fire back at you, and it'll just force them to fall back and pull out the radio. You know, it's just one of, like, a lot of quirky optimizations you can do. Which, of course, then again, I mean, if I saw...
Nothing.
You know, if I saw an enemy come at me and then they equip a box, I wouldn't know how to handle it either.
I got.
So, we raced to the other end of this part of Strut D
What's going on?
because we were trying to get in front of that guard while dropping down.
Communications with
And then we used this, like, latch cutscene that you saw,
an investigation.
which, as long as you're in that cutscene, it'll give you iframes. So as the guard's trying to shoot at you, they will not take damage. And just like that, we are now down to our final bomb. Which I believe on this difficulty... I think there's 11. It varies by difficulty, but when you get that codec, it's indication that you're about to finish the bomb defusal. Okay, so we're just gonna skip that camera. We're gonna... Okay, so I kind of equipped the box a little bit too quick.
It's the.
So we're just gonna do a backup strat and just shoot that guy's radio. So we finally made our way back to Strut C. We're now picking up this Sensor B, which is for detecting bombs that are not visible on the radar with Sensor A, because they give like a, certain odor signature. Whereas the Sensor B bombs are only indicated by sound. But we don't actually use Sensor B, but we just need to have acquired the item in order to, advance the story forward. So we defused all the Sensor A bombs, and then it's, oh no! We just triggered the Sensor B bombs, and we have 200 seconds to get back to the docks of Strut A. Well, I assure you, 200 seconds is plenty of time to get back. So we're picking up some chaffs along the way, which again is just part of, getting through the rest of this run. And we're gonna shoot this guard in the back to get him to turn around at a specific time so I can just kind of sneak right next to him. And as you can guess, we're gonna meet our favorite bridge guard.
Who is that? It's the... Was there a noise just now?
What's going on? Respond.
I didn't hear a thing. I may have heard a splash, but that could have been anything. But yes, that was that same guard I just knocked off earlier at the beginning. And he finally made his way back up, climbing the ladder. He's hearing the game soundtrack playing. It's like a triumphant return. Just for me to knock him over again. It's very unfortunate. And speaking of unfortunate, Peter Stillman is no longer with us. Which in the context of the story, he went to approach one of the Sensor B bombs, which triggered other proximity bombs as a, as a trap. And he basically blew up with the bomb. While we defused this second Sensor B bomb on this side of the shell. So that concludes the bomb defusal portion of the plant. And we're now going to be making our way back over to Strut E, which we're going to have an encounter first. I mean, encounter is kind of a loose term because you don't actually fight Fortune, but you're just trying to survive and wait out the clock. Which, in the meantime, we're having her blow up the forklift in the front of the room since it's part of a requirement to have this encounter end. And as you can see, she fires pretty fast on this difficulty with the railgun. So what we're doing is we're using the cardboard box to evade all the shots. Because for some reason, her targeting kind of follows right behind you as you're moving. And we just do this back and forth until the fight's over. I mean, the box is just that good. So you know what? Maybe it's not the punching, but maybe this cardboard box is the thing to ascend above Metal Gear. I mean, just look how powerful this is. Okay, so once you start shooting at these two golden barrels, followed by firing at the ceiling, that now concludes the fight. Alright, so now we're racing over to Strut E, teaming up with the next boss fight, which is against Fat Man, who has planted a Sensor A bomb at the helipad to kind of lure us over. So one thing you notice as I ended the Fortune fight is I had the coolant spray on equip, which is part of a menu trick where you can have your secondary weapon appear after an encounter, which is based on the weapon that you had equipped prior to that encounter finishing. So it's just a minor optimization of having to, like, menu in a weapon. Okay, so with the M9 in hand this time around, we're just gonna get this guy to see me. Go in the box, and we're gonna fire 1-2 rounds.
Are you okay?
Then we're gonna hold up this guy.
Who's that?
Enemy sighted.
And we just leave like nothing happened. Okay, so this time around, we're not gonna be using the chaff. Instead, we're gonna be going over to this area here with the box. It sets my profile low enough so that when the cipher to the right scans over, it will not see me. Then we're going to keep the box equipped, which again just keeps my profile low enough so I won't be spotted. And then what you just saw me do there is what we call a trick shot, where if you fire your USP round as you're reaching that corner, it'll get that guard's attention upstairs to pull out the radio. And if you fire your M9 round and cartwheel into them, it will instantly knock them out, just what I did earlier in the engine room of the tanker. And man, you couldn't miss this bomb. So this is the Fat Man fight. So the first thing we're going to do is defuse this bomb. And then we're going to kind of bait him into shooting me by peeking this corner. And it takes 6 rounds of the SOCOM to knock Fat Man off balance. And we're going to utilize that to our advantage by knocking him over, defusing the bomb, and then likewise switching back to him. And if you're fast enough, you can get 2 headshots with the M9. As you can see, so like you hit him as he falls down, and then you shoot him again as he's trying to like get up again. Now, Fat Man can be kind of random in terms of his movement pathing after you start the fight, but it's fairly consistent when you do begin it. Okay, so that should do it. Wow, that was actually a pretty clean fight, I gotta say, because again, the biggest element to Fat Man is his movement. It's not necessarily about where to find the bombs, because the 2 bombs at the beginning are consistent. But if you allow the fight to drag on, he will plant more bombs for you to defuse. But that was a really good fight.
Exactly.
Wow, I mean, Raiden knew. No, that was just me spamming the trigger during codec scenes.
Exactly.
Man, it's like Raiden is reading my mind. So now, with Fat Man defeated, we're now going to be tasked with going to the Shell 1 core to find a guy named Ames who knows the probable location of President Johnson, who was taken hostage along with the other hostages in this facility. And so we have to make our way into the core to gain that intel. So the mysterious ninja gave us a BDU guard's outfit, which is different from the ones that you see around the perimeter from the other Galukovitz soldiers. But okay, I was just focusing for a moment. But before we can actually go in, we need to acquire an AKS-74U, which is normally acquired in the bottom of strut F, along with a level 2 access card. Okay, so I equipped a little bit too slow there, but no need to worry. So we got our AK.
Nothing here.
And we're just gonna leave like we own the place. Okay, so a little bit of a menuing hiccup there, but we have our AK now, and we're gonna take out that cipher because the ciphers in this perimeter again only recognize the perimeter Galukovitz soldiers. So even though I'm in full disguise, it will still see me as an intruder. So from here on out, we're pretty much blending in as long as we don't do anything to gain attention.
Yo, what are you doing?
Well, pardon me, sir. I'm doing a submission video while punching the elevator. But yeah, so as long as you don't do anything like that, which I did that intentionally, by the way, the guards will just leave you be. So before we go into the core, we need to find this D-mic, which is in the B2 section of Shell 1 in this computer lab.
Hello?
Oh, hello, parakeet. Yeah, it's a very friendly parakeet. He says hello, Venus and Cancer, and a bunch of other stuff. But we need this D-mic in order to locate Ames, since he has a unique pacemaker sound frequency. Otherwise, you can't advance the story. Just like, you know, the whole thing about Sensor B I talked about earlier. So, as you can guess, they're not going to make this easy. So, we have this biometric scanner, which will not recognize me. but we're gonna borrow somebody.
Retinol pattern recognized. You are cleared to enter.
Yeah, so we knocked down the wall to trigger this guard to run around the corner quickly. And then, you know, just grab him and face him into the sensor. Now, we know what Ames looks like, but his location in this core is random.
Reporting no problems in the hall on B1.
You're Ames, aren't you?
Yeah, he could spawn in the 4 corners of the room, which is out of a probable... I think it's like 10 or 12, like, positions. But like I said, every time you enter that room, his location is random, like every playthrough. So ideally, you can get him close to you when you load into the room, which would be northeast. But in this case, I got southwest, which isn't not necessarily the worst spawn, but it's still just as fine. There are some locations that are inconvenient due to the fact that there's so many guards patrolling in there. But we got what we needed, and we're now going to be making our way out of the core because the jig is up. They know we're an intruder now. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to throw this chaff and wait around this corner.
There's somebody there.
Then as it goes off, we're going to shoot this guard with the riot shield.
Who is that?
And the chaff is going to disable the cameras in that hallway. I mean, the whole first floor. You know, because as you can see, there was a lot of cameras and, you know, makes it very complicated to get out without it. So we're now tasked with going over to the Shell 1-2 connecting bridge, which is via Strut D. But before we go over there, we need to acquire this PSU-1 sniper rifle.
Who's that?
So first thing we're going to do is we're going to trigger detection while shooting the guy's radio. It's going to lure a guard from downstairs to upstairs.
Stay on guard.
There he is.
Understood. Reinforcements are on their way to Strut F.
And with the PSU-1 sniper rifle acquired, we now make our way back over to Strut D. And so you may have noticed I shot the guard's radio intentionally. More so than just being convenient, but we want this caution bar to be refilled because if you approach Strut D's connecting bridge area when the caution expires, it puts you at risk of a SWAT team guard to see you. Because unlike the sentries, if a SWAT team member sees you, it's an immediate alert, no matter what. So we just do this to ensure that we get over here smoothly. Ah, it's a box! Okay, maybe that was rude of me, but we finally made it over, and as you can guess, yep, they didn't make things easy. You know, they wired this place up with a lot of explosives, so we're gonna be shooting out these sensors located throughout the 1-2 connecting bridge area, plus a few hidden places. So again, we're just gonna be taking them out as we see them. Being very careful not to shoot the Sentex. Okay, so we're gonna shoot that wall to scare the seagulls away. And then we're gonna shoot both of these sensors located on top of these ciphers, and I gotta say, I don't know how they put them up there without the sensors falling off, but like that, or just like that, we made it through. No coolant spray required. Okay, so this is the Harrier boss fight, so I'm gonna focus for parts of it. So we're gonna fire 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5th. Which we did get. So we're basically going up against the first and only like vehicle-based boss fight, which is reminiscent of like the Hind D and MGS1. And our main weapon of choice is the Stinger missile launcher. So we're just gonna try to inflict as much damage as we can before this segment here. So we call this halfway point the die shots, where if you skip the cutscene of the missile pods dropping and aim your Stinger at a certain place, you can get 2 additional hits in while being at a safe place from the carpet bomb. Okay, so again, sometimes this flight pattern can be random, so in this case he went off to the right, which doesn't give me as many opportunities to inflict damage. So you're gonna see me aim and fire the SOCOM while he's missiling me. Doing this is gonna give me iframes where the missiles will not kill me when they land on me directly. Okay, one more shot. Okay, very good. So I did miss some shots along the way, but like I said, when the Harrier flies over across the bridge, sometimes his turns are just random. You can't always predict which way he's gonna go one time over another. But overall, good fight. Alright, so we crossed over what I call the leap of faith, which is crossing over a chasm of a somewhat broken bridge and a ocean you don't want to fall into, and I fell into the ocean more than I would like to admit, trying to make that cartwheel jump.
Hurry up and check.
So what we're doing here is we're crossing this broken section while having the BDU equipped, which you might be wondering, well, what's the use for it? You don't have the full disguise. Well, believe it or not, it actually provides some camouflage in certain sections, so we use it here to not get detected, because those guards will see you if you do not have this outfit equipped. So what I just did there is I knocked on that wall a certain point, which is gonna distract a guard to look over and away from the open window. So I could sneak through, because unlike other sections of the plant, if a guard sees me in that particular section, it's an immediate alert. There is no, like, radio, you know, sequence that you would normally get in other sections of the plant earlier. So we're gonna use this chaff grenade of the ones we've been collecting up to this point to disable these 4 drones. Just for ease of access into Shell 2. Alright, so we're in the location, based on Ames's intel, that President Johnson is in the first floor of Shell 2. But, just like, as you've seen thus far, I mean, they don't make things easy. The entrance leading into the room where the President is has an electric floor panel, which is not crossable, so we have to acquire a Nikita missile launcher, which is in the B1 floor, in order to take out a power box. But it's not going to be as easy to actually get the Nikita, because if you remember earlier, there was a bomb that went off in the Shell 2 section, and so this floor is flooded. You know, so we have to kind of work for trying to get this thing. So, not much to it here, but just making the way over to the Nikita. And then what I'm going to try to do is time a 180 flip while acquiring the Nikita, which is right over here. So, as you can see, as I flicked my analog stick down, it will allow Raiden to kind of turn himself around underwater. It just makes it a little more efficient, rather than having to, like, turn around normally. Alright, so with the Nikita acquired, we can now make our way back up to the first floor of Shell 2. And we can actually destroy this power box. Now, for some reason, President Johnson is sleeping while standing up while we try to rescue him, so we're gonna kind of wake him up with an explosion. You know, we're the courtesy wake-up alarm. You know, because we're like, hey, we're here to try to rescue you. This is not nap time. But more than just waking him up, it's gonna lure him over to a corner where he heard the explosion. Which, as I navigate this missile through this these vents, it's gonna give me time to send this missile across the room and then into this that power box, which is now destroyed. And the electric circuit is now broken. And we can now meet up with President Johnson. So President Johnson just gives his account for, you know, what happened during the takeover of the plant facility, you know, the existence of arsenal gear, you know, and there was just a lot of wacky stuff going on. But just like Stillman, Yeah, Johnson went rip too.
I took these photos.
It may have been hard to see, but Snake was trying to show the photos of what he took on the tanker, and just for clarification, he did not take those photos, because my photos looked to nothing like the ones he took. Okay, so we're now going to go back into B1 of Shell 2, which we're going to be looking for Emma Emmerich, which is Otacon's stepsister, who is also the computer programmer for Arsenal Gear's AI, which is named as GW. And she's the only one that knows how to, you know, sabotage and, you know, dismantle it. So we have to go find her. So there's a direct way to get there. And then there's somewhat of a really weird direct way of getting to her. So we're gonna go the faster but weird way to get to her, which we call the swim glitch. Which, if you swim on this corner just right, and then ride this edge all the way up to the ceiling, looks like I'm swimming in the air, and that's because I am. And because, for some reason, they never patched in the ceiling. So if you could just swim right over to where you need to go, skipping all these nooks and crannies, and skip a cutscene, as well as a hatch. And just like that, wow, we're in the filtration chamber. Alright, so this is Vamp. You know, normally fighting Vamp in this difficulty can be really aggravating, but we have a way of kind of cheesing him, which is by luring him to get close to us to knife. And we're just gonna punch him a lot. Because anytime you have Vamp out of the water and you're within, like, close range, you can trigger him to knife repeatedly. And because his knifing animation is really slow, you can actually get a lot of damage in. You know, but you gotta be very, very careful of his knife range, because it is a lot wider than it appears. And just like that, we got him. Because I'll say this much, trying to fight Vamp without doing that, that close proximity punch method, it's very scary. You know, most hits will kill you in one, and Vamp is not a fun boss fight to go up against. So before we go meet up with Emma, we're gonna pick up this body armor, which, like other items, is gonna be used for the end game of when we get into Arsenal Gear later. Okay, so we're in this other section in this locker room, and then we found Emma.
Leave me.
Definitely not.
You know, I mean, Emma doesn't truly appreciate the amount of work it's taken to get here. You know, I mean, we're trying to tell her, like, we're here to rescue her, and then she tells us to leave, and I have to say, you know, I had to swim glitch my way here, fight Vamp, all this other stuff, and she tells me to leave. Well, anyway, so Emma was drugged, so she couldn't really leave on her own, so we kind of have to escort her back, underwater and above water. So throughout parts of this section, you're gonna see me, like, holding Emma's hand to like, kind of move her along, because she can't walk on her own just yet. So this part of the run is relatively lax, because prior to this, it's been pretty fast. You know, lots of things going on. You're going from one room to the next. But when you get to this, you can kind of, like, relax a little bit, have some time to compose yourself, until you get back to here, which, normally this hatch would be open if you didn't do the swim glitch, but because we did use the swim glitch method, this hatch was never open, so we do have to open it ourselves. And we're gonna, get out of the water briefly to pick up that PSG-1T, which is a tranquilizer version of the PSG-1 sniper rifle that I picked up earlier. Carefully navigate around these mines, because if you hit these mines, it's game over, man. So, Ryan can hold his breath for very long, but Emma can't for very long either, but as long as you're quick, You can get Emma through just fine. You know, just let it be known that no Emmas were harmed, nearly drowned in the making of this submission video. Also, she has a fear of bugs, so we're just kind of aggressively, you know, hugging her to make her way through because we don't have time to use the coolant spray to, you know, disperse the bugs. So again, Emma wasn't harmed, but we're just kind of helping her conquer her fear of bugs while politely telling her, Emma, we gotta get moving. It's a speedrun after all. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna follow a specific pathing, basically following the walls of this area here, which buys me enough time for some guards to move around so I can get through safely. And then, tell me this, alright? I was underneath the water with Emma. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? He was not in there. I mean, I've been playing this game for years and I still don't know the answer. Well, anyways. Just gonna trank this guy. This guy. And then we're just gonna be exiting out of Shell 2. And we're gonna meet up with a guard that we met earlier in the conveyor room of Strut E. That's right.
Freeze. Mo.
It's Mo! Like I said, man, Mo's a good guy. So what I'm gonna do is call the Emma bump, which you're gonna lead Emma up to the door and then kind of spin around and push her through. What this does is it kind of teleports her forward when you load into the next section. It just saves you a few seconds at most, if done quickly. Over just, you know, dragging her through yourself normally and then being at this reduced speed, as you can see. So what we're gonna do is, before we reach this midpoint of the bridge, we're gonna throw a chaff on purpose to allow a guard to kind of notice me, while also disabling these ciphers. Then we're gonna use the coolant spray to take out half of this fire here, since you only need to take out that half to be able to cross through. And you might be wondering, well, who just saw you and why isn't the alert kicked in? Well, I mean, the guy's kind of having a bad day. You know, he's stuck. So that's how it works, is that he's kind of leaning on a railing with binoculars, and when he sees you and the chaff interrupts that radio call sequence, he kind of gets stuck in place. You know, I kind of feel bad for them, but at the same time, we're on a speed run. I mean, we got places to be. So we're just gonna trank these last two guards, which is gonna end the, at least manual escort session of this run, which we're now gonna proceed to the sniping section. So the PSU-1T that I acquired earlier is specifically for this area. Because again, if you're trying to go for big boss strats and you're not trying to kill anybody, it's an essential weapon to have. But before I continue, I'm just gonna get some menus set up, where we're gonna have to disable a series of mines located on these water bridges, as well as some sentries at the beginning. And then we use the thermal goggles to see the mines, but you can also use them to locate the guards a little bit easier. Okay, then we're gonna take out a few of these ciphers while we wait for guards to show up. And these, like, 4 areas here, like, there was one in the upper right that I took out first, and there's gonna be one in this upper left coming up shortly, followed by 2 others. So, I use the patazamines to study Raiden's aim regardless of how his stance is holding the weapon. Uh-oh. Okay, so that was a little unfortunate. Okay, so I missed my headshot, which, again, that alert won't count against me, but it will slow Emma down, because she kind of pauses in place when those happen. So just a little bit of a time loss, but, you know, we can keep going. So while we're waiting for Emma to get up on the first platform, we're gonna take out these other set of 6 claymores here. So that's 4, and this 5th one is tucked in right behind that pillar. It's really hard to see, so you kind of have to be in a somewhat specific area in order to even see it to take it out. And we're just gonna be swapping between covering Emma from guards, taking out ciphers, the claymores, and just making sure she gets through quickly, but, you know, without her being spotted, preferably. So as she makes her way up, we're going to be taking out an additional guard, which will spawn right as she crosses underneath. Okay. So what you just saw me do there when I used the turbo is it allows you to fire semi-automatic weapons such as the sniper at almost like near godlike machine gun speed. Man, Raiden's got a fast trigger finger. Yeah, so that was with turbo, and this is without. So it does really make a big difference with the use of turbo, which, again, for the most part, it comes in handy for snipers. Semi-automatic weapons like the M9 and SOCOM USP don't benefit from it as much, since it kind of has like a cooldown when it fires per round. But it does come in handy in this section especially with trying to take out these guards quickly. Alright, so we're just waiting for Emma to trigger these next set of guards, just like the first platform. So there's gonna be one, followed by two more here and here. Okay, just making sure I got him. So we're basically trying to get Emma to this other end of the oil fence, which is reconnecting it back to Shell 1 via Strut-E. Normally you would get a codec from now Solid Snake, because after all, Iroquois Pliskin was really Solid Snake. I mean, I know, it's hard to believe. But on European Extreme, you don't get this codec call until the very end of this section, which isn't really that helpful. Not that we really need his help, but just one of those FYIs about running this on European Extreme. Alright, so I'm gonna empty my PS1T intentionally, which is gonna be for setting up another encounter coming up. Because we have two more ciphers remaining. Along with this last one right here, so here's the codec. Or at least I think this is the codec. Okay, maybe Snake's running late. Oh, there he is.
This is Snake. Can you hear me?
Definitely not.
Wait, that was Snake? I told you. Well, yes, so it was in fact him. And he comes at the very end with only one cipher left, so I don't know what support he was trying to provide, but maybe he's just there for moral support, just saying, I'm here if you need me, you know, and you can also do this.
Do I need to clear things with Otacon before I ask her out? Just a little more.
So this is what he's really thinking during
Alright.
this section.
Just a little more.
Yeah, Snake kind of had other things on his mind. Alright, so Vamp is back because he just doesn't know how to go down. So we're gonna pick up the additional ammo for the PSU-1T, turn on turbo, and just let her loose and just spam his leg. Because Vamp has no hitbox cooldown every time you hit him. You can deal the most damage hitting him in the head, but his body turns every time he gets hit, so it's hard to trace it. So instead, we just spam his leg, since it never moves when he gets hit, and it's the easiest to target. Alright, so we're making our way back into Shell 1. As we try to gain access to arsenal gear.
It's the enemy.
just give that guy a farewell bump, because I have a feeling we won't be seeing them again. Now, you may have noticed earlier when I left Show 1, when I was the guard disguise, the panels were missing. And when you come back, they remain missing. So it's very important to be aware of what panels were loosened during the escape. And to be very adamant about trying to cross them over safely, because I have lost runs to, you know, falling through the bridge there. And not only do you lose the rank and take a continue, but it reloads you back at the bottom of Strut E, because time segments like this will put you back where the timer starts, not from the room that you got the continue in.
It's been a while, hasn't it? Jack the Ripper.
Wait, who's this guy? I think that's Solidus, but who's this other guy?
You know this fellow? You remember me, don't you?
Wait, what is this place? Oh no, I'm in trouble.
Concentration of cerebral impact.
I better resist.
Have they altered your memory, too?
Yeah, you don't have to really do anything there. It's an interactive cutscene. But it's basically telling you how to resist the, you know, the Solidus torture when he's trying to strangle you. But during that sequence, you can just let it go to 0 and not have anything happen.
Olga, you can't keep this up. They're bound to
Oh,
find
hey, I remember Olga.
Listen, I'll free you in a little while. Brace yourself.
Man, she doesn't hold back her punches. But I have it on good authority that the reason why she punched me wasn't to try to, you know, put on a front. But I think she was ticked off that when she gave me this cell phone earlier, and I wasn't answering the text messages. I think that's why she punched me. I mean, I don't blame her. I mean, it's rude to not answer text messages. Alright, so we're in Arsenal gear now. And we're stripped down to nothing. And I mean absolutely nothing.
Who's there?
So, we skipped that codec, or we timed that codec specifically to get by that guard, just due to the fact that they could see us from very far away. I mean, it's hard to miss this guy. So we're just gonna carefully navigate around this catwalk while avoiding the cameras and these guards, now dressed in Tengu gear. Go underneath the blind spot of this camera, and I'm just gonna punch, kick this guard to play it safe. You can actually cartwheel into them to go into this door, but if you miss the cartwheel, it'll actually create an alert, because like the SWAT team in the plant facility, if any of the Tengu guards see you, it's an immediate alert, no exception. Oh, but wait a minute. I think we got a call coming in. Something important.
I hear it's amazing when the famous purple stuffed worm in Flapjaw space with the tuning fork does a raw blink on Harry Carey.
Uh-huh.
I need scissors. 61.
Well then, I don't remember that being covered in the briefing, but hey, if anyone's got scissors 61, the Colonel's looking for him. Now, I mean, spoiler alert, the Colonel that we've been talking to isn't really the Colonel, it's some AI that's taking on the persona of the Colonel, and we've inserted a virus that was partially uploaded, which kind of makes the Colonel say some weird things, but that particular codec that he does is my personal favorite when you're in this section. I mean, he says a lot of other goofy stuff, but the Scissor 61 is just incredibly meme-worthy. So we met up with Snake, we got our gear back. This is more or less a tutorial on how to use this high-frequency blade, which has two sides, the lethal side and the blunt non-lethal side, so we're going to be setting it to this. We won't actually use this sword until the end of the game, but you have to swing the weapon at least once, or thrust with it, and then be on this upper half of the hallway while you're just waiting for a 45-second tutorial timer. Meanwhile, Raiden will just do some moves. Made possible through Turbo. But, I mean, there's nothing else better to do while you're just waiting for the timer to expire. Alright, so this is the first of 2 Tengu encounters, so I'm going to focus for a little bit. So we're going to equip the stuns, throw it. Made some gunfire, cartwheel once. And then we're gonna continue to throw these as I reach them, which is gonna clear the way of these Tengus coming in. And then we're gonna lean up against this door, punch, punch, kick in first person, and then when you let go of the camera on the kick, if you do it successfully, the kick will actually go through the door and will allow you to reach the loading zone of the next room, so you skip several minutes of having to fight Tengus. Hey, man, I'm sorry. Oh, no, I'm not.
Moron.
Okay, more than just trying to troll Snake, we have to get my health low enough to 25%, because we want Snake to spawn with the M4 here during this Tengu section, because if your health is higher, he'll spawn with the USP, but if your health is lower, he'll use the M4 instead, which is an overall better weapon for him here. So what I'm doing now is holding up a Tengu from the first wave, and I'm trying to keep him alive for as long as possible, to trigger what we call the Tengu 2 skip. Meanwhile, Snake is just plowing away with the Tengus with his M4, so we're just gonna let him do the grunt work. Alright, so after this amount of time, I'm just gonna gradually let go and release of this Tengu so I don't kill him by accident. Because shortly you'll see what's gonna happen by having this Tengu from Wave 1 survive for so long. Vision mailed, huh? You know, I was wondering when that was gonna get mailed to me. Yeah, this is just the GW virus kind of kicking in. You know, the game over screen isn't quite what it should be. Okay, so just a little bit longer. Okay, I think that should do it. And just like that, the encounter's over. Might be thinking, well, wait a minute. All I saw you do is grab a Tengu holding up in a corner for a couple minutes and the fight's over.
Using fire to fight.
Well, for some reason, when you hold up a Tengu from Wave 1 and you just keep them alive for as long as possible and they later pass out on their own, the game just doesn't know how to register it. It's like, wait, how does a Tengu from the first wave get to this point for so long? So it just ends the encounter. It saves you probably like 4 to 5 minutes of having to fight 128 Tengu enemies that come in. So as you may have noticed, Snake only went through maybe like a third of those. But if you fail to do the Tengu 2 skip, you have to go through all 128 guards that just relentlessly come in. And it just loses you a lot of time.
Solid Snake's sudden appearance.
So we're waiting for Solidus to finish his speech, which is going to begin probably what's the most difficult part of this run, which is the Metal Gear Rays. We're going to be fighting 20 of them. Or at the very least, we have to do a damage equivalency of taking out 20 Rays. So I'm going to explain little tidbits here and there when I can, because I do need to focus for parts of it. Because as you can see, I don't have a lot of health to work with. Spotty armor will only save me from certain things. And it's going to get pretty intense. So first thing, we're going to cartwheel and we're going to shoot the rays in this order. Middle, right, and then left by hitting them in the leg and then in the mouth, which if the ray's head is open, it'll do full damage. If the ray mouth is closed, it'll only do partial damage. So we do this several times. Hit the last ray in the middle, and then we're going to cartwheel over. Dodge the water cannon. Aim it in the mouth while the water cannon... Or, I'm sorry, while the ray mouth is open from the water cannon. Take out the ray right there. This third one jumps on stage. And then we're going to get into the position for setting up what we call the ray loop. So this ray's going to come in, and we're going to attack it twice. While this other ray is going to be setting up. So this ray's going to jump on stage while the other's kind of going to like rotate around and get in position. I'm going to trigger another water cannon just by being close to it. And then as long as you keep moving left or right, you can dodge the water cannon. But if it hits you at any point, it's an insta-kill. So you have to be very careful not to get hit by anything other than the water cannon, because like I said, most things will kill you in one hit, except for the bullets they fire. Alright, so what I'm primarily trying to do is rotate damage between these rays coming in and the ones jumping on stage. And what this does is it allows you to control the pacing of the fight while taking out these rays quickly. And this is what we call the ray loop, where you're having one ray jump on stage while also doing damage to other rays on and partially on, like on and off this platform. So like you focus on this ray on the platform that jumps in, you deal damage to a ray that's off the platform. Okay, then you swap back to the other ray, deal damage to the other. Because they follow a sequence where as one ray is trying to get on the stage, the other's trying to get off, which buys you time to just intermix damage like this, and you're just swapping between rays. And you're doing this the entire time, basically. Okay, so you know when the ray is going to jump on stage just based on its movement pattern, but it also prioritizes the HP of the ray with the lowest health. So the ray that has the most damage done will be the next one to jump on stage, so you can anticipate what ray will be next. And you even notice that they go through like a script routine, whereas a ray is waiting outside to jump on the platform. They go through a routine of like they shuffle around, they open their mouths to roar, and they often try to do a water cannon attack, which is very brief, but it doesn't really do anything. So it's part of what makes this ray loop possible, because you're taking advantage of like their routine scripting, along with the fact that their positioning is consistent when they spawn in. Okay, so we're gonna start dealing damage to this ray next. So like when you see the ray open its mouth like that to roar, you can actually use the opportunity to deal direct damage to it. You know, I mean, it's a very brief window, but you can do damage to it. You know, otherwise, you're mostly seeing me hit the leg and then the head, which is a quick 1-2 method of getting full damage done. Okay, so the other rays are getting in position, so I'm just going to start looping these two here. So sometimes the rays can kind of get away from you, but you just have to be able to adapt. You know, because as you can see, there's a lot of things happening at once, and awareness is key. Okay, that was an unfortunate miss, but no need to worry. Okay, I'm actually in a really awkward position, so I'm gonna focus for a little bit to try to recover this. Okay, so anytime the rays kind of get out of position like this and they start surrounding the platform, it gets a little more complicated to try to control it. Okay, so again, we're just trying to rotate between rays, as I have been doing. Okay, here comes the next ray, and again, these camera pan changes are also an indicator of, like, pointing out which ray is next, and just like that, it's done.
Are you awake yet, Jack?
So like I said, you're not fighting a total of 20 rays, but you're trying to do the amount of damage of what would be taking out 20 rays. Like, it counts them weird, where some of the damage on one ray can then carry over to the next. So now I'm just going to be mashing for my life for 50 seconds, just due to the fact this is on European Extreme. You can use Turbo to go through this section, but sometimes I just like to enjoy the segment of just mashing. Okay, 20 seconds left. Seconds.
What do you hope to hear?
Yeah, so if you want to save yourself the trouble,
It's not him.
and you have turbo enabled, you can just hold the triangle button down and it'll just guarantee your survival during that segment. Because in further iterations of this game, they actually nerf that amount of time for mashing. So instead of trying to do it for an agonizing 50 seconds, it reduces it closer to like 15. Something that's a little more reasonable. But now we're coming up to the final boss fight of the run, which is going to be up against Solidus. And we're going to be using the HF blade a little bit differently than what it's normally used for. But again, we're trying to be going for non-lethal big boss strats. So what I'm going to be trying to do is another loop method. Okay, so I wasn't expecting him to do that, but that's okay. So what we're going to do is try to bait out either an attack or just a parry kick that he does. And then we're going to intentionally let him block. And then we approach his right side, or his left side, because he actually lost an eye during the Harrier fight. So it's a blind spot for him. So on his right, he can see the attack, so he blocks it. But on his left, he can't see the punch, so you can actually get some hits in while rotating between hitting him on his left, going to his blind spot. And you rinse and repeat this until you get about halfway to get him into phase 2. So you're noticing that I'm punching instead of using the HF blade. Punching him, while it does slightly less damage, it's actually faster than trying to hit him with the blade. Okay, so that should get me phase 2.
Good work, Jack. But this is where it gets interesting.
Alright, so Solidus wasn't too happy that he was stun locked for all of phase 1, so he's gonna say, you know what, I'm ditching the arms, I'm not messing around anymore. So what you just saw me do there when he zipped into me is I did a parry where I swung my blade at a specific point as he's trying to charge me, which depending on how I hit him, I can either get in a hit or a block, or just stagger his balance where he just kind of stumbles around and I can get a hit in. But either way, any of those are fine. You can just block it to be safe, which is what most situations call for. But if you do want to save a little bit of time, you can try to go for a parry, even though it's really risky. Alright, so I'm actually going to try to manipulate his position a little bit, because whenever he gets tucked in like this, it's hard for me to get around him when it's up against this rubble here. So sometimes I'll opt out of trying to, like, loop him. Okay, so there's the stumble, the stagger I was talking about. Not that I meant to do that, but you know what? I'm gonna do it one more time just for style. Okay, that was interesting. We kind of hit each other at the same time. And that is time. So, 111.28. And, looking at my stats, this is actually a big boss run. You know, I lost some time along the way, and, you know, some things were close calls, but
I remember now.
you know, pretty decent run in my book. You know, going for big boss is definitely one of the hardest things to do.
That's it.
Especially just given the twists and turns and complicated boss fights that are along the way. But before I end this submission video, I just want to give shoutouts to Metal Gear speedrunners for their support and encouragement of running this game. Just shoutouts to Mac McD for introducing me to MGS2 while I was learning to run this game.
All living things
Shoutouts to Tyler, 2022, and DLimes13 for helping me get better at the game through helping me in certain parts of trying to, like, you know, improve the run. And to everyone else that's helped me along the way, whether if it's just tips, advice, or just things that help me get better. And it's a great community to be a part of, and I hope that you take this run into consideration for upcoming events such as SGDQ 2021. And, you know, until next time, thank you for enjoying this video, and I will look forward to seeing this get in future events.